Welcome to the show today, Brian. How are you doing?
Doing well, Dan. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on today. You've got a real interesting story, a lot of lessons that I think our listeners and viewers can learn from. And you've done a lot in real estate investing. And
Hmm.
why don't I just let you give people a little bit about your background so we can jump into this half hour or so we've got together.
Yeah, I from Detroit originally. Um, grew up blue collar. My dad was a firefighter. Mom was a cashier at a grocery store for 25 years. So I actually had my first go at entrepreneurship in the streets.
Mm.
Bumped my head when I was a teenager, late into my teenage years, and found myself in trouble and kicked out the house and on my way to college and flunked out of there my first semester, wasn't focused. And all the while, had a daughter on the way, all by the time that I turned 18. And fortunately, during those trials, found my way back into the church, found Christ, got recentered, and some things started to change in my life. And so got rematriculated back into college, and that's when I found real estate. And buddy of mine was flipping houses. This was in 2006. Stated income loans at all time high, which was kind of the catalyst for the market contraction in 2008. And he was flipping houses, so the buyers would qualify on paper, but not financially. So I would leverage my refund checks in college and cover their down payment to purchase the home from him, and then he would give me a return on my investment. So I literally got started from a $7,000 refund check,
Wow.
and from there, I'm like, well, if they're buying houses with no job, I can do the same thing. I got the credit qualifications, so I started buying rental property while I was in college, 2006 and seven, and then built a new construction home for my family to move into when we left college. And unbeknownst to me, all of that was happening at the height of the market. I was opportunistic but not educated at the time, and so as the market contracted, so was I, exposed like everyone else. Lost a lot of my equity and my positions. But fortunately, because I built up liquidity 2008 to 10, while the market was compressed, I bought over 20 rental properties. I was like 24, 25 at the time. It was fortunate to buy those, free and clear at the bottom of the market. So just a lot of, sheer will, a lot of faith, a lot of favor, and just being opportunistic, I would say. Action brings clarity. Most people fail because they just stuck in their mind. And the more action that you can take, the more clarity that it'll bring.
How did you was a friend you said when you were in college that
Yeah,
introduced you to real estate? Because most people go to college and they learn how to get a job. They don't like
exactly,
it's not it's
exactly.
rare that someone goes there and like stumbles upon real estate. It's almost like everyone who's good at it almost gets into it by accident somehow.
That is true. That is true. My buddy, he was probably 18, 20 years my senior. I knew him through a childhood friend. And we were just sitting around chewing on the fat, talking one day, and he was telling me about what he did. And I was intrigued. So, I was kind of living this double life of going to college to learn how to get a job, but then at the same time, tapping into my entrepreneurial spirit and being able to make some plays while I was there.
How did you not get caught up in the crash, or maybe I should say like completely taken out? Because it sounds like you were doing some aggressive stuff, like a lot of flips, new construction, stated income loans, but somehow you managed to have the liquidity and maybe the cash flow, some the rental units to make it through. Like what was it like back then? And how did you get through it?
Yeah, so everything I had leverage on, I was upside down. So all the rentals that I bought with loans, I was upside down. I had negative equity on all of those, negative rents, even in some cases. And even my primary residence, I was upside down by 40% when the market contracted. But because of my lending efforts, I was liquid from those transactions that I was doing when I got started. So I was able to use leverage to purchase my primary and three other rental properties. But then when the market contracted, I was still cash savvy that I was able to buy a bunch of properties down at the bottom of the market.
So you just had enough cash on the sideline that, in other words, you weren't like fully deployed like a lot of people can kind of just easily get to, right? Like,
Correct, correct. Yeah, because I mean, quite honestly, I didn't see in 2006 and 7, to me, there was no reason to use cash.
right.
Like we were getting, almost 100% finance stated income loans. It made no sense to deploy cash at that time. So I was just kind of stockpiling cash, not for any particular reason other than it just didn't make sense for me to use it to buy property because I could just sign my name and get property.
Right. And so you had enough cash on the sideline to go out and buy good deals and to, maybe rents came down and they didn't cover the mortgage. You were able to cover the extra $400 or $500. I don't know what it was per door, that you were under water or negative rent on.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't waste a lot of time throwing good money after bad. Once the deal started to go south, I quickly started working on getting up under toxic paper. So, and again, I'm saying all of this in retrospect and it sounds savvy. I just so happen to be blessed that a lot of different people came into my life at the right times. And so I met a guy in 2007 who like knew about short sales. And it was one of those situations where they were taking 8 to 10 months back then. They weren't popular at all. You had to really know someone that was, you know, you had to really know someone that was in the business that could pull something like that off. And so once things started to go sour, he started working on, some of those mechanisms for me: deed in lieu of foreclosure, short sales. So I was, not by my own doing. I was in good position even for the exit with the toxic paper as well.
Do you think we're now, 2022, do you think we're heading back to that time where there's going to be a wave of foreclosures or a lot of people underwater? There's certainly, from some investors, real estate agents, that fear is out there, whether it's justified or not, or if it's, maybe it's based in reality, maybe it's based on just a memory of 2008. Do you think another wave is coming of foreclosures?
It absolutely is. We missed our market cycle. That should have happened right around the time COVID did. And rates were already climbing at the end of 2019, going into 2020. The market was slowing down tremendously. And then all of a sudden, COVID happens. And we've been living in this fictitious economy, just printing the fiat dollar for some time now and making things seemingly better than what they really are. So we're still due for a market cycle. And, while it won't be Armageddon as it was back in 2008, I think we're going to see some significant drops in a lot of markets. I think, nationwide, there's going to be a correction, but then I think some markets are going to be drastically affected. Those that appreciated too aggressively, I think they're going to come down significantly in a lot of those micro markets.
So are you stockpiling cash now? Are you still buying deals, or is it kind of deal type or area specific? Like what's your strategy right now?
Yeah. Our strategy right now has been buying commercial multifamily. We've been in, D plus C minus areas. And, our strategy has been to provide good, affordable housing for people that, are financially challenged. And then we've been backing ourselves by subsidized Section 8 because, if everybody was paying attention during the height of COVID, right, when rent moratoriums and such set in, it was the people in A class, B class assets that really got hosed. Those that had C and D properties that were backed by subsidized and Section 8, the government kept paying. They never missed a beat in terms of collecting rent. So just been trying to appease both sides of it, right? Doing the right thing by less fortunate people, and then protecting ourselves on the investment side as well and getting some really good equity positions.
Well, I think the other thing you have going for you with that strategy is, or that game plan is, you're buying stuff where if a recession happens, like people still need workforce housing, right? They still need affordable
Absolutely.
housing where,
Absolutely.
and there's not much else for them to kind of move down to. Whereas if you're in those luxury places, well, those guys can always move down, and now you've got more vacancies in the nicer places. So,
That's true. That's true.
yeah, I've seen a lot of multifamily people, kind of deploying that strategy or using that logic. So you got a lot of good, I think, things out there. Government support for it, more
Hmm.
subsidies. More people can move down to it. Are there certain areas or places that you're looking in, and conversely, certain areas that you're avoiding?
Yeah, so I live in Orlando. Um, Orlando is great for a lot of different things. Uh, ROI, in my opinion, is not necessarily one of them. You got to have a lot of cash out there to make it make sense. So, although I live here, I think the Airbnb model is really attractive here. Whereas like my long term rentals, I'm looking more in the Midwest. I do a ton in Detroit. There's a lot of opportunity in Ohio, Milwaukee, even just great equity positions in the Midwest. And I would say even on the East Coast, as far as like the Carolinas, even some great opportunity out there as well. And just in terms of what markets stand out of, so we have a international mentorship program. We've got students in several countries as well as all throughout the states. Most of our students that are in New York, Cali, Miami, they invest elsewhere. Our foundation is to teach them how to set up their infrastructure and invest remotely. Became a default strategy for me the last 11 years. And so just being able to pivot and go into markets that give you the right looks as opposed to being relegated to having to invest in your market where, maybe the looks aren't as favorable.
So the long term rent sounds like you're in Class C, Class D, in places where median home prices maybe aren't that high compared to the rest of the country. But then you have this other strategy, short term rental, in Orlando, which is higher prices than most of the country. Uh,
Hmm.
what type of places are you buying in that area? And what's your overall like Airbnb short term rental strategy there?
Yeah, I'm just getting into the Airbnb side. Right now, I've got one I'm picking up this week. It's going to be well, I guess it's arbitrage. The guy is actually he just finished the flip. He's going to lease it to me, and then he knows what we're doing. Though we told him, exactly what our strategy is. He was comfortable with it, and so I guess essentially it's arbitrage, and we're looking for corporate folks or traveling nurses, and then we're still going to put it on the Airbnb sites as well.
But you're looking
I
for a little
I,
bit
I
of a
pers-
longer stay because of corporate and traveling nurses. I'm guessing you're looking more for like the month long stay than the weekly stay.
yeah, yeah. For me, that everybody's appetite is different. For me, I still like to have a little bit more of a runway, and having a month or two secured at a time versus, just plugging away from day to day. That's not exciting
Right.
to me, but it may be to some. Um, but that's the beautiful part about short term rentals. The more that I dig into it, it's just so much parity in how you can approach it. And it just took me a long time to get into it. I'm just old school, you know what I'm saying, in that regard, in terms of how I started and when I started. But one of my students, he recently started his short term rental business, and so it's kind of a turnkey operation. They do everything for you, and so I told him I'll take a flyer on him.
Yeah, I think the short term rental business is fascinating right now, as well as the Orlando area. As you have so much international travel there and hospitality, and all the different theme parks, of course, and that whole area. I think within a year it's going to be connected by train all the way to Miami, and
Yeah,
you're
it is.
you're kind of seeing this phenomena where the outskirts of Orlando keep getting pricier and pricier, almost as if Tampa and Orlando are gonna, like in 10 years or so, become one giant connected market.
For sure. For sure. It's seemingly going that way. No doubt about it. I've been here for 11 years now. And just to see the growth in Orlando, is unmatched. I haven't been anywhere in the nation that I've seen similar growth.
How did you make the transition down to Orlando? Were you still up in Detroit at the time?
Yeah, I was. You know, it was a situation where I was doing well in real estate when the market was compressed, but the state itself was it was a sad place to be. So we found ourselves traveling to Florida just to kind of break up the monotony of living there a few times out the year. And our daughter was at an age where it was like, let's just move. And so it essentially just came from wanting to live in Florida from traveling down here so much.
So as you've done that, you obviously left, homes and probably investments where you started off in the Detroit area. How have you been able to build and scale and do deals all over? Like what does your team look like now that's able to help you do this?
Yeah, so I part of the story that I hadn't gotten to was, I did the single family rentals for 8 years, had no mentorship, just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And then finally I found mentorship. Like I, found a infomercial late one night back when that was happening and went to the free thing and led to the 3-day thing and led to the $40,000 thing. And, but for me, it was a no brainer. I had hit my fundamental ceiling of achievement based on the checks that I could write and the information that I was privy to just based on my own experiences. And so it was a no-brainer. Whatever it cost, I was willing to pay it because I needed to finally immerse myself in an environment and get some tutelage from those that had gone before me. And so when I did that, I learned how to fix and flip wholesale in addition to how to set up my cash flow portfolio in a better way, because I left $2 million on the table selling off my first portfolio in a down market. The property started to need work that I didn't plan for. And rather than be a slumlord, I just started to cash out those properties. And had I held them for 10 years and, during this market, I could have had an exit, for about $2 million. And so ignorance is expensive and we can't afford it. And I just encourage everybody out there at some point, go align yourself with people that have gone before you doing the things that you want to do. Pay whatever you got to pay. It's going to save you and make you money in the long run, period. So as long as you apply yourself. You got the best information in the world. If you don't apply it, it's not going to go anywhere. But, the sooner you can go get help. Like, I don't rack my brain trying to figure out much these days. Whatever I want to get into, I go find people that are smarter than me in those particular areas. I pay them for their help. I get their systems, their processes, and then I go to work.
I definitely think there's not an investor like, anywhere that sold a property 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. That's like, darn, I look what I would have got for it now, right? Like we all kind of have that, right? But you have to look at it in the context of like, okay, I probably took money out or then I had extra time or leverage to go do something else, and what did that opportunity, lead
True.
to? So I think it's kind of easy to beat ourselves up over like any property right now just because of what the market's done.
Yeah.
But
No
it
doubt.
might have been the best thing at the time. Are you still doing flips, or are you mostly buy and hold now?
Yeah, I'm all buy and hold right now. I never say never, but after doing so many flips over the years, I kind of live vicariously through my students. They're doing flips, so it's fun to shadow them and help them out on their deals and whatnot. But yeah, I've just really been focused on buying commercial multifamily.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make some big money on the flips, but then it's kind of like being a real estate agent and not building out a team, right? Like if you go out and you sell a home, you either big commission check. Great. Well, you spend time building out a sales team that can make money when you're not necessarily meeting with every single client. That's a business, right? And I kind of look at flips the same way, right? If you're out doing flips and making big hits, that's great. But as soon as you stop doing flips, the money stops.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're only as good as your last check. That's for sure.
So how did you branch into? I've heard you mention students a couple times now. How did you branch into, reaching back down or helping other people, and how do you do that?
Yeah, it was totally organic. I was a part of a group, as I mentioned, where people had spent sometimes in excess of six figures on additional classes and courses, and but they couldn't figure out how to take it from concept to practicality. I had gotten to a point where I got a pretty good groove and how to, acquisitions became my strong suit. And then I started to put some infrastructure in place and whatnot to build out and scale on the flips. And so I really was just helping people who couldn't find deals. And that's how it started organically. And then somebody came to me and was like, listen, you need to be on social media, blah, blah, blah. All the things I was against. I was really just always a guy that wanted to kind of do my thing in the background. And obviously, guy had a different plan, and I got on social media, and I looked up, and before I knew it, we had really grown something significant internationally in a very short period of time. And so, we've now been mentoring officially for 4 years.
Wow. What does that mentorship look like? Like, who's the ideal person for you? And what do you offer them?
Yeah, it's man, I've helped such a wide range of people. Some people who've done 10 flips and then they come to me because they can't really figure out, they have no system, right? And so what happens is when you do a lot of random activity, your results tend to be random as well, right? And so it's just really helping people to put together systems and processes to replicate success. Unlike HGTV, as you know, Dan, that's not the business. You want to streamline things as much as possible, run it as production as possible, take as much of the guesswork out for the contractors, who are the Achilles heel of our business. And so, just helping people from setting up their businesses, to all the legal documents that they need to hold people accountable throughout the process, teach them how to raise capital, create tax shelters for themselves, all the way down to identifying the right list agent and putting the right checks and balances in place for them as well. Because, anybody can put your property on the MLS, but are they the most qualified to really sell that property in that specific market that you're in? So, just really looking at everything holistically and teaching them how to be a well-rounded investor that understands everybody's role. Not that you're going to do everybody's job, but you certainly need to understand everybody's role, because we as the investor get paid last. Everybody collects a check along the way.
Right.
And if they don't do their part correctly, you won't collect one in the end. So, that's kind of the all-encompassing of the program. But then also we work with people off the street that have no real estate acumen, all the way up to those that may be a little more sophisticated, that's looking to streamline things.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to, help other people, start on the path of and hopefully, get to where you are, or even pass you. It seems like one of your really superpowers is finding good deals, right? How are you doing that right now, and how do you scale that? Right, it's easy to kind of like maybe go look in one area, find deals, but it sounds like you're finding them all over. So how do you do it, and how do you scale that process?
Yeah, I think it's all about what's the goal, and then reverse engineering that, right? I'm looking to buy another 100 doors this year. So ideally, I don't want to buy anything under 20 doors. I want to make probably 3 purchases if possible. So my fillers are out for that specific deal type, right? I think the more that you can simplify what the goals are, then you can simplify your approach to get there. I have, I just got a 18 unit, so I kind of broke my own rule, but this deal is just, it's like 350 on acquisition, 350 rehab, and once leased up, this thing is going to be worth 1.3 on a 7.5 cap. It's a home run deal. So I just locked it up Thursday. But somebody, as a matter of fact, the guy who started me in real estate in 2006, who recently moved to Florida 2 months ago, brought me this deal last Thursday before I left for sabbatical. So I'd say that to say, while I'm out looking for deals, LoopNet and otherwise, CoStar, I've got people who understand, my network understands what I'm looking for. So here's a relationship from 2006 that just brought me another deal that's got $600,000 worth of upside to it, not to mention, an NOI of $100,000 a year. So it's about your network is literally your net worth. The more that you can surround yourself by people that's doing the things that you want to do, closed mouths don't get fed. You got to be communicating with folks about what it is that you're looking for, and people will start sending you deals. I had a guy reach out to me via DM today and say, "Hey, I just got some multifamily in Detroit. What's your email?" This is just a guy who follows me on social media that sees what I'm doing because I'm communicating that to my followers as to what I'm doing.
I love it. I love that that line in there. You said that closed mouths don't get fed, right? It seems like you simply define the kind of deal you want, define what the goal is, like you said, define the goal, and you let it be known. Friends, network, social media, and the deals are coming to you.
They roll in, man. And for newbies, they're so jaded in that they don't, a lot of time they don't believe that when I tell my students, and I have to show them like this is really happening in real time. Because don't get me wrong, Dan, as you know, like anything else, you got to build it up. When I first started flipping houses and I was doing 20, 30 deals a year, I was submitting 30 offers a week. And so you got to have multiple agents in multiple markets. You got to have wholesalers in that local market. You may even be running some off market marketing channels yourself, SMSs, maybe mailers, maybe you got bird dogs out there. You got to have any and everybody looking for what you need, including yourself. And you got to be scouring the MLS and everywhere else, a couple hours a day, depending on what your appetite is.
Yeah, I like to use the fishing analogy. I go fishing on a charter boat, usually about once a month, and you're not fishing with one line. They've got like 7 or 8 lines out there trolling. Some
there you go.
Some are to the left of the boat, some are the right, some are on the surface, some are down deeper. Like you got to have as many lines out there as you can, and one of them's going to hit eventually, usually.
That's right. I like that.
Well, this has been amazing. Your story, I think, is really inspirational, and hopefully a lot of people will benefit and be inspired and learn from the things we talked about today. Before we wrap up, and I'll give you a chance, by the way, at the end to share how people can connect with you. But before we wrap up, I always like to do a HyperFast round. If you are ready for a few rapid-fire questions here.
All right.
What's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate investor?
Get educated.
What's a mistake that you often see experienced investors making?
They don't know how to analyze comps. They have the wrong ARV.
That's a big one. If you had to start over and you couldn't take your money with you, your contacts, your reputation, any of that, all you could take is what you've learned from doing this for a decade and a half or so now, what would the first thing that you do be?
Buy cash flow. Were you able to hear me, Dan?
Oh, I think you cut out. If you want to try that one again.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You want to ask the question again? That way we
Okay. So
get it.
yeah, you didn't. If you had to start over, from the beginning, go back 15 years, and all you could bring with you is what you learned. You couldn't bring your money, reputation, any of that. You could just bring what you've learned, and you had to start over again. What would the first thing do? What would the first thing that you do be?
By cash flow.
Buy cash flow. All right. When you're not working on real estate or teaching other people how to do it, what would we most likely find you doing?
Having a cigar.
Having a cigar. You go up to the Corona Lounge there in Orlando?
I do, man. I do.
All right. Last question. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
So God gave me a gift to teach, right? And I don't know whether that's going to be real estate or otherwise, but I'll be somewhere pouring into people and teaching.
All right. Well, that's amazing. I love that you're giving back and recognizing your gifts that God has blessed you with and using them. So it's always inspiring to hear that. If people want to connect with you or learn about your mentorship or send you a deal or any of that kind of stuff, what are the best ways for them to get in touch with you?
Brian_Adamson1 on Instagram, and everything is there. They could click the link in my bio, set up a call to chat with me. That'd be the best place to find me. And I pour out tons of content. I think we posted every day for almost 3 years, just feeding the people on a multitude of levels. So yeah, Brian_Adamson1 would be the best place for them to check me out on Instagram.
All right. So go follow Brian on Instagram. Thank you for being on the show today. And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please leave us feedback and share this with people that you think could benefit from hearing it. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and go to hyperfastagent.com to learn about upcoming in-person and online events. And don't forget to share this show with someone that you think could benefit from hearing it, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere that you can find podcasts.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos.